Hey guys, how are you? Jim Prusak, physical therapist here at the Pain PT, and we're going to go over today how to stop catastrophizing. And catastrophizing is highly linked to pain levels, highly linked to disability levels, and I've shared a few studies recently showing that, and there's many more saying the same thing. Now, one of the biggest things when I work with people is to identify whether they're a catastrophizer, meaning they worry or anxious or concerned or thinking negatively about what they're going through, assuming the worst or thinking for the worst. Because this catastrophizing, like I said, is one of the big pieces of the puzzle for healing. And I call catastrophizing something that comes in on the back end. So typically, when somebody has symptoms that have started and they haven't gone away, typically people start to worry more. They start to become more concerned and they can start to catastrophize. Now, we also know that people who think negatively or assume the worst or have the greatest fear over something, that stuff typically happens to them. So we know what the brain study is showing, that when people have that parts of their brain overactive to begin with, they run the risk of making an acute issue a chronic problem. Now, it's funny because catastrophizing comes from the emotion of what? Fear. Okay, fear drives catastrophizing. And we want to nip fear in the bud. Okay, fear is just a feeling or an emotion like any other emotion. And one of the things you want to do with fear is learn to sit and move through our fear, face our fear, feel our fear, and not react to it and not run or do something because of the fear. Okay, we are driven by our emotions and driven by our feelings. I'll do another video on this another time, how basically our feelings run our lives and create so many different things that we do. But for now, I want to stick to catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is a mental issue, so it's coming from your mind. It's thoughts, okay? So negative thoughts that pop in your head or something that you continue to believe or think about or conjure up. Now, catastrophizing is not a problem. It's not a problem at all unless you engage in more catastrophizing. So what I mean by that, the first thing is this. The initial thoughts that pop into your mind or into your awareness come from deep in your subconscious brain. Okay, they pop up as if they're just popping up from a well. And we need to become mindful. So this is the other important ingredient to stopping catastrophizing, is to first be able to recognize that we're doing it. Because if we can't see that we're catastrophizing, we are in the middle of catastrophizing. We're not separated from it, where I'm over here and I'm looking at catastrophizing over here. That's called separation. That comes from mindfulness, where we can pull back and see what's happening. Now, the quicker we can do this, the quicker we have a choice to disengage or not take up these negative thoughts, and we can let them go. Okay, so this is the practice of releasing catastrophizing, is to first recognize that we started to do it. Okay, then we have a choice to let that go. We don't have to continue to think this way and keep creating more negative thoughts around what's happening. Now, people ask me, well, I think maybe something's wrong or things could really get worse. Now, we have to use, I'm not asking you to do this on blind faith to stop your negative thinking. I'm asking you to use real evidence and real logic here to support this notion that you can let these negative thoughts go and realize that you're actually okay. Now, we have to do this by reasoning, like looking at your thoughts and looking at the chances that something that you're thinking about will happen, or if your actual negative thinking is not even correct, it's false. So a lot of people have negative thoughts around their physical symptoms, that if they do more, the pain will get worse, that it indicates a problem, a physical problem, that they're going to be more damaged, hurt. And we have to realize with this mind-body syndrome, with neuropathic pain, neuroplastic pain, is that there isn't a physical problem. Okay, so we don't need to be concerned about the symptoms, and this comes from your knowledge that you're learning about this. You use real knowledge to support what you're doing. Okay, so most of people's negative thoughts are not true to begin with. They're based on a false belief or false logic, and a lot of times they're steeped in the worst thinking, like of the worst situation, the worst outcome, which is basically so slim to happen. So we have to use logic and evidence around your condition. This is why it's good to get a diagnosis of mind-body syndrome from a practitioner, someone like myself or somebody else who works in this area, who's a healthcare professional. And then you need to use this evidence for your advantage, combining that with mindfulness. Okay, those two things, your evidence with mindfulness, will allow you to let go of catastrophizing. All right, so let's think about this for a minute. You start negative thinking, you notice some negative thoughts popping in your brain. If you notice it, that means you're aware. That's great. Now you have a choice. And your choice should always be to let those thoughts go. Let them run. Okay, you don't need to grab the thought and start thinking more of the same. Okay, that's only going to make it worse. That's the problem. The initial negative thinking that pops up, the initial thought that wells up, is not the problem, because that will just go if you let it. It's the compounding thoughts that you create, the subsequent thoughts that you create and can run with for a period of time, meaning minutes, sometimes hours for people, sometimes all day people are in negative thinking. Well, where do you think that's going? Right into your body. It's creating chemistry and a setup for chronicity, for inflammation, for pain. All right. So again, catastrophizing comes on the back end of experiencing something. It also comes in anticipation of something, thinking for the worst, and it comes from the emotion of fear. All right, so we're trying to really overcome fear. Fear is probably one of the primary emotions that people have when it comes to chronic pain and chronic somatic complaints that we need to work with. And we'll talk more about that also in another video about this fear. So I want you guys to see if you can notice your own catastrophizing when it pops in, when it creeps in, when it comes in. It comes again from your deep subconscious brain, which has stored your whole life in it, and it's coming from that. So if you've had a history of things happen to you, or from your current physical problem, or from traumas, or from your past, it's all a culmination that kicks out some of these thoughts. Again, we don't need to do anything about them other than let them go. Okay, we want to let them come and then let them go. We don't want to suppress them, and we also don't want to react to them. We want to just allow them to go. Again, comes from prefrontal cortex, which we're trying to get stronger. This is your mindful part of your brain that we know in many, many chronic conditions and chronic anxiety is weakened. It's like a muscle that has gotten weak that we want to strengthen. Okay, so I challenge you guys to catch your negative thinking, use logic and evidence that you're actually okay, that the situation you're worrying about is far-fetched and very unlikely to happen or not even true in the first place, and then practice letting go of these things consciously. Okay, so you're consciously identifying that you are catastrophizing, you're choosing to let that go. And you can reinforce it with a couple other thoughts if you'd like, of saying, hey, I'm okay, I'm safe, there's nothing here, this is not going to happen because of the logic, okay, because of the evidence. All right, everybody, go ahead and work with this. This is a big piece of the puzzle, catastrophizing. It shows up in a lot of research studies around chronic pains, chronic somatic complaints. It's one of the key things that we need to work with. Take care. If you need support or need help, reach out. That's what I'm here for. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.